Okay, so by now you should have looked at some of James Rizzi's artwork. And what did you notice about his artwork? There's a lot going on. His artwork is very happy. It's very playful. There are lots of buildings. There are buildings with faces. There are lots of things going on in the sky. There are also things that are going on in the foreground, which are the things that are in the front of the picture, the closest to us. There's lots of things going on in the background, like for instance, the sky. And then there's things that are in the middle ground. And in his pictures, the buildings are in the middle ground. Okay, so when you are thinking about your artwork, you are going to include things in the foreground, in the front, in the background, things that are behind everything, and then things that are in the middle ground, okay? All right, so we are going to draw a line about a fourth of a way up on the paper, okay? And I am using a marker. You can use a pencil at first if you want to, or I suggest just using a marker and going for it, okay? All right, so below this line is going to be our foreground. This is going to be what is closest to us. Now you have some choices. What do you want to be in the foreground? In this picture, in the foreground, what is in the foreground? The water, very good. So there's water, there's fish, there's boats, okay? So you decide, do you want water in the foreground? Do you want a street in the foreground? Do you want animals in the foreground? Whatever you choose, you're going to draw in the foreground, okay? All right, so I'm going to do water, inspired by James Rizzi, okay? So I'm going to draw a couple things in my foreground, all right? I am going to fast forward and I want you to draw something in the foreground. You pick. It can be a street, it can be the water, it can be really anything. If you look at some of James Rizzi's pictures, there are people in the foreground. And when he draws people, he draws very simple faces. They have really big eyes, really big lips. Very simply drawn though, okay? So you decide what you want in the foreground, and I'm gonna fast forward this while I draw my foreground, and you fill in what you want in the foreground. All right, I'll see you in a minute. The middle ground, and the middle ground is going to be our skyline, okay? So the first thing that I'm going to do is draw the buildings that are closest to us, okay? So I'm going to, all I'm doing is doing simple rectangles. You can do a little bit of a 1 point, or actually in perspective, a building if you want to. Maybe you have another building. These are not true perspective, in true perspective, okay? A lot of cartoonish type buildings, all right? Okay, so I've drawn some buildings that are closest. Now I'm going to draw some buildings that are behind these buildings, okay? So let's make one that comes out like this, and maybe a building like this. maybe this building. There's one building in one of his pictures I really like. It's got kind of a swirl. So I'm going to try to draw that over here. And as you can see, I drew one side of the building coming all the way down, and then the other side I stopped it in front of this building to make it look like it's behind, okay? This is all in the middle ground, but these buildings are behind these front buildings. All right, and let's draw one more in here, okay? You can draw as many buildings as you want. It's totally up to you, okay? And then in the background would be I'm gonna draw one more building over here. The background would be our sky, okay? All right, and if you noticed in a lot of his paintings, he includes the sun and the moon, okay? So if you are going to include the sun, I would include the moon also, all right? And then there's all kinds of fun things in the sky. I'm looking at one right now, and there's a UFO, there's all kinds of different birds, there's stars, hearts, squiggly lines, all kinds of lines going on. So when you go to draw your sky, you can add whatever you want. He gets very detailed. There's a lot going on in his sky. So I'm going to fast forward this while I fill in the sky, and then I'll meet you back and we're going to fill in the windows for the buildings, okay? I'm going to fast forward it while I get my sky in. Okay, see you in a minute. Okay, so I filled in my sky, and you could actually draw so much more, just depending on whatever you wanted to draw would be totally fine. Okay, so now we're gonna fill in our buildings. All right, so these buildings that, these buildings that are in a little bit of perspective, we're seeing two sides of them. You can draw windows if you want. I'm just drawing lines to give the idea of that perspective, okay? On the buildings, if you remember, very playful, very fun, very positive, and there are faces. There are faces on the buildings, so kind of like cartoonish, and again, very playful. All right, so I'm going to add faces to my buildings, and then I'm going to add windows and doors, and I will meet you back here in just a minute, okay? Have fun adding all your little details to your windows, or to your buildings rather, okay? You're going to add faces, windows, doors. Some of your buildings may just have lines. That's totally fine too, okay? All right, I will see you back here in a minute. can use markers, crayons. I would suggest markers or crayons. Color pencils might take you a while, but if you like color pencils, go for it. That would be totally fine. All right, so I'm going to start coloring in mine. I can't wait to see yours. If you look at his coloring, most of it is pretty flat, but up in the sky, he does color like outlines in one color and then colors in the object in another color. That would be totally fine too, okay? So add, you can add, there's jewelry on some, there's headpieces on some, there's teeth on some. Really just be as creative as you want to be and as detailed as you want to be. And then when you're ready, you're going to start coloring it in, okay? All right, so I'm gonna start coloring in mine. I can't wait to see yours. Have fun with this. I really thought this artist is very happy, very positive, and I thought it would be a fun project to do, maybe get us smiling, okay? All right, so have fun coloring this in. It is a lot to color in, so if you start and you get a little tired, then just walk away, go back to it later, and then continue coloring it in. And don't forget to turn in your project, okay? So I am looking for something in the foreground, something in front, something in the middle ground. The buildings will be in the middle ground, and then your background will be your sky, okay? So the foreground, like I said before, can be water, can be a street. Really, you decide what is in the front, in the foreground. What is in the middle ground is the buildings, and the background will be the sky, okay? All right, have fun, and I can't wait to see your projects. Don't forget to turn them in so that you can get a grade, okay? All right, see you later.